Balance changes. They came to us a little while ago, and with that being said, there are a couple things that are, I know, just a little bit too broken. So today I'm gonna suggest what I would really appreciate to appear in an emergency balance changes that I really hope to come as soon as possible. Now, let's start with my favorite brawler, Chester. I was surprised by he not receiving a buff. That is offensive to me. So the first thing that I want is his super cost to be decreased from 7 to 6. I already asked this a bunch of times. I don't feel like his damage need to be increased because that would make him broken, actually even more broken, in very close situations, but just reducing the super cost would just help him out so much. The second thing is his super, the pop rocks, that little tiny useless slow super. Now it could be thrown, like Tick Head for example. That would just be very helpful for the super because I feel like that is the only super that is 100% useless. And the last thing that I want is he to have the option to use a reload gear. Chester can be countered by, well, his ammo. So having the reload gear would be a really good choice in most scenarios, but it would just make Chester either have to choose between the damage gear, the health gear, or the shield gear. Now you would also have the reload gear. And I feel like these three changes would make Chester so much more viable in the meta. Next on the list we have Hank, and yes, I know what you're thinking, he just got a buff. But hear me out, even with the buff, he still also receives a nerf to the HP, which it's obviously not that big of a deal because he did had a lot of HP, but he was one of the worst characters in the game, and I feel like even with the buff, it didn't change that much. Yes, sometimes it can be slightly overwhelming the crazy amount of heal that you can get, especially when you're like at 1 HP, but the super still takes a lot of time to get. So the only change that I want to see is he would now have the tank trait. These would just make so much sense. Most of the tanks have the tank trait to approach people or have some sort of counterplay, and Hank perfectly fits into that category. So I feel like the tank trait, it is the perfect call for Hank. Next on the list we have Squeak, and it has been a really long time since Squeak has even been close to viable. The single only decent thing that he has, it is his residue gadget. Other than that, his kit feels very underwhelming. On my honest opinion, I would give him a hypercharge, but in an emergency patches that's never gonna happen. So, I want his supercharge to be increased from 25% to 34%, which means that he would need 3 hits instead of 4 to get the super. The super is not even that great anyway, so I feel like it makes perfect sense. And his super would now deal the same damage as his basic attack, which it would also be a good buff. His super, it's not really that helpful unless you get the second star power with the slow, but then you lose damage. So I feel like this super cycle would help Squeak a lot more to apply pressure to the enemy team without making him necessarily broken. Next on the list we have Brock, and Brock, I will say, in my opinion, one of the most underwhelming snipers. So just to start off, I want his HP to be increased from 4,800 to 5,000, so he would have the same HP as B. For me, it makes perfect sense. Brock has nearly no way to defend himself unless you use the second gadget, and Angelo has 6,000 HP, so I feel like this is completely valid. Now, the second part is with his hypercharge, which I must say I was so scared when I saw in the Brawl Talk, then I realized, oh, it only deals 500 damage. That's stupid. So, let's increase the damage of the hypercharged rocket from 500 to 1040, which is actually half the damage that each rocket from his super deals. But with that being said, the hypercharge would be way too strong. So these would be the two nerfs that the hypercharge would receive. Number 1, the bonus speed from the hypercharge would be reduced from 26% to only 5%. I don't feel like Brock is the type of sniper that would benefit a lot from extra speed, and for me this makes perfect sense. And to counter this sort of bonus increase on damage with the super hypercharge, the hypercharge rate would be decreased from 50% to 40%. And I feel like this is not that big of a nerf because honestly, I always felt like Brock's super, especially with the first star power, are very easy to cycle. So With this overall, I feel like Brock would finally be a good sniper, and who knows, maybe even on area control. Next on the list we have Doug, and Doug is back to the bottom. Honestly, I no longer see Dogs. It is very unlikely for Doug to be even helpful because his super is just so hard to get. So now he would have the same trait as his buddy Buzz, or Cordelius, or Lily, because I just feel like that would give him enough super, but not overly super. Like a tank trait on Doug would be too much, but I feel like the Buzz trait, it would be really good for him. Now starting the nuffs, we have the new brawler Lily. Now she's kinda balanced, but her first gadget, it is really broken. Now I don't think that reducing the duration of the gadget would fix anything, because I feel like even if the gadget lasted 1 second, it would be extremely broken. So instead of just reducing the duration and kill the concept of the gadget, I would instead give it the needed treatment. What am I saying? Well, her first gadget, the bear does not immediately stun everyone around. It has a tiny delay, 1.5 seconds if I am correct. So for Lily's gadget, when you press the gadget, you would have to wait 1.5 seconds. You could still move, but you would have to wait 1.5 seconds to enter the Shadow Realm for 3 seconds. And I feel like this would completely remove the crazy defensive capability that this gadget has and focus more on the offensive capability without completely ruining the concept. I feel like this is the perfect change. Now starting with the usuals, we have Angelo. Honestly, the fact that he only received one tiny nerf on his poison arrow damage, it is stupid. This guy is the fastest sniper, the most high damage sniper, the sniper with the most HP, and just because he can charge the attack, and in opposition to what Hank does, he can keep that arrow charged forever, which is just so broken. So 3 nerfs. Number 1, his HP would be reduced from 6,000, which is just stupid, to 5,200. Because let's be realistic, he has way too much HP and he can also heal with the first power, which is very broken. Secondly, his damage would be reduced from 440 at minimum damage, 4,400 at maximum, to 420 at minimum and 4,200 at maximum. So at maximum damage, he would deal the same damage as Hank actually. And that seems pretty balanced because he deals a lot of damage. Because you can keep that arrow charged for all eternity, you will almost always deal max damage, because it does not even take that long for a sniper to charge that much damage. And finally, while he's charging up his attack, his movement speed would actually get reduced from very fast to fast. I like the idea of he being a very fast brawler, I really do like that, and I don't want to completely remove it, but that ability, it is very strong. So now while he's charging, he gets slightly slower. That would also give some sort of counterplay to he always charging up the arrow, which is obviously very broken. And with these 3 nerfs, I still feel like he would be kinda good because of the first star power and the first gadget and the moving on water, but with these 3 nerfs, I hope that he finally becomes at least balanced. Next on the list we have Melody, and Melody, even with the 2 nerfs, she's actually still really strong, which I think it's surprising honestly. So her HP would be reduced from 8,200, which is actually a lot, to 7,800. But as just a tiny little bit of a buff, her second star power, instead of giving 25 bonus duration, it would be plus 50% bonus duration. Because the first star power, I feel like even if it was like a 4% movement speed buff, it would still be the better star power. So the second star power really needs this buff in my opinion. Next on the list, kinda keeping the Supercell vibe, a very tiny nerf to Piper. Now her auto aimer gadget, which is the first gadget, it would not activate the second star power. In case you don't know, when you actually use the auto aimer, you still get 0.4 ammo if you're using the second star power, which is obviously kind of a strong thing. It just makes the gadget even stronger. And because Supercell seems to want to give tiny nerfs everywhere on Piper, I feel like this is what is most likely to happen, and it is a very simple fix that would significantly impact Piper. Now, before we move on to the next world, I just want to ask you to please subscribe. I am really trying to reach 1000 subscribers before summer, and I know we can reach this goal together. So if you're liking the content, please leave a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. But now, let's not take any longer. Let's go to Kit. I want his overall damage to be reduced by 5%. He is a great assassin, and you should not underestimate him at all. But there is one bug with his super, that when you kill someone with your super, it actually stops your reload and your attack at all, which is honestly very annoying. It stops him to get some multiple kills, like you kill someone with a super and then you just have to wait. It is very bad. So let's fix that bug, but let's also nerf his damage by a tiny bit, because he honestly deals a lot of damage because he can attack so fast. Next, we obviously have Sandy. Sandy Hypercharge. It is honestly one of the most broken Hypercharge I have seen in a while. Like, honestly, Fang Hypercharge, Edgar Hypercharge, Jesus Christ, I'm having nostalgia right now. So, the bonus damage and the bonus speed from the Hypercharge would be reduced from plus 25% to plus 20%, and the Hypercharge bonus shield would be completely removed. I know that the shield removal, it is very unlikely to happen, but it is something that I feel like it should happen. And the Hypercharge rate would be reduced from 60% to 50%, so you would need in total 2 entire supers instead of 1.66 supers. This, in my opinion, is what Sandy really needs, because Sandy was strong already without the Hypercharge, and they give him a very strong Hypercharge. So honestly, I don't want to remove the speed buff from the Storm or the silence from the Storm, because that's what makes the Hypercharge unique. So just the buff, actually the nerf to the buff stats of the Hypercharge, I feel like that is more than enough, because I really want this Hypercharge to keep being so unique. Next on the list we have Belle, and I mainly focused on the Hypercharge. Belle, it is probably one of the strongest, actually the strongest sniper right now, mainly because she has a Hypercharge. But my problem with the Hypercharge, I thought the Hypercharge would be very bad, because, well, the ability is not that great, but the bonus stats that you get are actually insane. So a little bit of a rework as well. I want the bonus speed to be reduced from plus 26% to plus 10%, and the bonus damage to be reduced from plus 25% to plus 10%. But now the charge rate will be increased from 40% to 50%. So you could get that out away on the super a lot faster, but you would no longer have as many stat increases. I feel like that is what should have been done from the start, because the Hypercharge is not really that good, but the stat increases just make Belle be able to be so aggressive that it actually makes her very strong. I'm pretty sure that there must be some people that only use the Hypercharge because of the stat increases. So this change should make the Hypercharge feel more unique and not so focused on the stat increases. Next we have Leon, and Leon already received a couple nerfs, so this one won't be the worst, but I feel like it is very necessary. I want his Hypercharge bonus damage to be reduced from 25% to 10%. Even though it is kinda hard to get the first super, when you get the first super, if you play well Leon, it is game over for the enemy team. You'll just cycle supers and then cycle Hypercharges. And with the Hypercharge you just deal so much damage. That damage should definitely be reduced. Now this next one might be a little bit controversial, but I just have to get this out of my chest. I want Rico to be nerfed so badly. Since he got that super damage increase, I just see Rico so many times, and honestly I feel like a brawler like Rico being so strong without the Hypercharge having so much defensive capability with the first gadget, he needs a tiny nerf somewhere, and I feel like the super damage, it is the way to go. So I want the super damage to be reduced from 720 per bullets to 680. I mean, remember that most times you will receive more damage because of the Ricochet's first star power, which adds damage, but I just feel like it needs this nerf. It is way too strong, Rico, without the Hypercharge, which he will receive eventually, so I'm just praying to not get melted in the face right now. And lastly, I want Jesse's Hypercharge to receive the following nerfs. The bonus damage should reduce from 25% to 5%, and the bonus speed should be reduced from plus 26% to plus 15%, and I want the shield to be removed. So, number 1. The Hypercharge, it is very strong. Like, the bonus HP that you get, it is just absolutely crazy. That 9000 HP turret, it is absolutely crazy. It just is. So the stat increases are unnecessary because you get the Hypercharge in 1.66 supers. That is very strong. And the bonus damage, I feel like it is way too much. It just allows Jessie to be way too aggressive, while she should just put the Hypercharged turret. I feel like that is the objective here. And the shield removal, I mean, if you're not being aggressive, you don't really need the shield, so for me it makes perfect sense. The Hypercharged Jessie, it is way too easy to cycle, and it is way too strong. And there you have it, all of the emergency balance changes that should appear as fast as possible. Remember, this is just more in the thought that it is an emergency balance change, so I could be here all day talking about all the balance changes, but I won't because it is just an emergency patch notes. If you have different opinion, write in comments down below, trust me, I will read them, and I'll see you on the next video.